everybody. Welcome back to the Darkest Fears podcast. And today we're doing something a little bit different. We actually got something real special lined up today. We have Corissa Grant with us from Worthy Chaos Comics. And she has a really cool graphic novel that she has done called Redemption. We're just going to kind of get into it. So, first off, I really want to ask you, Carissa, is how did Redemption come about?
So the very beginning of it was I started playing Resident Evil 2 in the 90s and I became obsessed with it and I started to role play as Claire Redfield online. And so I role played for 15 years and then I had this story idea for like 11 of those years about an angelic weapon. And it didn't really go with, the Resident Evil. So I just kind of held on to it and I met my I have a co-writer that writes for, just so you guys know, the story is written, I write the story and I write everything Serafina and my co-writer writes everything for Draven. So when you read
Oh,
it,
okay.
the speech and the thoughts and everything, that's all my co-writer. So you have two different personalities. So I found my co-writer as a role player and we role played this story. So for 2 years we role played as these characters. I'm Serafina and she'd be Draven. And we wrote over 100 issues just for fun. It wasn't intentional. It wasn't like, oh, let's make a comic book someday. No. And suddenly I was like, did you know that we have 11 novels written for this story already?
Wow.
And so 50 of those issues is this series one, the series one of this. And we have another 45 for spinoff and a couple for series two and a prequel. So we have a lot written. But yeah, we just were like, we were thinking when we finished it, we had 11 novels. I was like, oh, well, maybe we can release it as a novel or something. But the way it's written as role playing, it would have to be like merged together and destroy the story. And I was like, I don't want to make any money off of anything that I have to destroy. So I was going to release these for us, print them at lulus.com, one each, good to go. And I said, for celebration, I'm going to find an artist to do a cover for us. And I'm going through the covers, and we're role players. So we had actors in mind when we were writing. And I was like, these are really, these are really cartoony. Do you mind cartoony, or does it have to be realistic? And my co-writer is like, oh, it's we could do cartoony, and like a light bulb went off, and I was like, well, if you don't mind cartoony, we can do a comic book. And like an idiot, I was like, how hard can it be? It's incredibly hard. It's like the hardest thing I've ever done in my life. And I started my own business. This is 5 times harder than the business that pays for it. But yeah, I found an artist who actually screwed us over. So started right off the bat losing $5,000 and lost another $4,000 from another artist. That was more my fault than theirs. And so $9,000 was wasted. And I was like, to continue or not to continue. And I was tired of spending money and looking for artists. So I posted my story online and said, if anyone wants to write a free page, we've got 50 issues written, we'll hire you, and blah, blah. 5 people were in the middle of doing it. And then my artist wrote to me, this current artist I have wrote to me and said, are you doing any more submissions? And I said, well, I have 5 people doing one. But if you want to do a free page, you can hand it in now and I'll look at it first. Or if you want to wait till they're done, if I don't pick any of them, I'll pay you for a page. He handed in one right away. I paid off the others and hired him. He was like the first, in 24 hours, he had 5 panels, pencil inked, colored, and lettered. And it looked phenomenal. And he's
Nice.
never worked in comics before. This is his first paid job. His name's Jonas DaCosta, and he's absolutely phenomenal. And I got super lucky that he's never been hired, because now there's hopefully that loyalty there when he gets so famous, and he'll still work for me. But yeah, from then on, we've had that's all that's 9 months. So this is our ninth month, and we have issue 6 live now on Kickstarter. And issue 7's already done, and it will be released October 3rd. And issue 8 starts next week, and that'll be January 23rd. So, and we're gonna have a hardcover of the first 7 issues, and that's 228 pages. So yeah,
Wow. Yeah.
I'm about the
Nice.
hardcovers.
yeah. So we're kind of fast. We release every other month. We try to, and I took December off, kind of, but
Yeah, from
pretty
the
much every
research I
month.
did, like your work ethic is insane. Like honestly, it's crazy. I was like blown away watching other
It's a
interviews.
complete obsession. It is. Everyone's like, oh, it's.
Yeah,
We
and
all have
sometimes it
passion
has to be.
projects. Yeah, I was like,
Yeah.
it's a complete faith in hoping that it's as good as I think it is.
Yeah, and I
Really. I
love the
mean, like,
artwork too. It
yeah, the
definitely
artwork
reminds
is
me
just
of The Darkness and Witchblade,
Yeah,
which I'm a
yeah.
huge fan of. I
Did you see our
definitely got
issue
that
6
vibe.
cover? Because that's actually a
I have not
Witchblade
seen that one yet.
homage.
No.
It is a so our issue 6 cover is an homage of 3 technical covers.
Mhm.
The our left side is the first cover ever of Dracula where the vampire is holding the girl, so we have
Yeah.
that. And on the other side, it's Uncanny X-Men where Wolverine was trapped on an X, a wooden post, an
hmm
X. But then we took it to the homage for Witchblade, where she's took that homage from that, and now she's on an X or a W for Witchblade. So the funny thing is, somebody showed me these homage covers, and they had never read the issue yet because it hadn't been done. And they're
Right.
like, "Oh, these covers are really popular," and I was like, "All of that happens in this issue. We have
Yeah.
she's knocked out. There's vampires. There's our character was chained to a post just like that. There's skulls, there's fire, there's heads chopped off. I was like, it was perfect. So yeah, we took that, and so if you like Witchblade, you'll like the cover on it, and it came out really
I
well.
mean, I'm more of a Darkness fan, but they cross, obviously.
Yeah,
But yeah, I've just always loved that art style. It's just something very 90s about it.
it
So
is
I
very
guess it
80s
was,
and 90s.
yeah, I guess it was probably like, just that early 90s X-Men comic cartoon that I saw. Like, that's comics to me. Like, even though I'm a
Yeah,
DC fanboy, like, when I think of like my youth, like it's either Swamp Thing or it's X-Men.
yeah.
And that look, that really hard look, just from those 90s X-Men cartoons, was what I always thought comics would be. And then when I got into comics and just saw there's a world of different styles and stuff, I was like, oh man, this is awesome.
Yeah, and both my artists and I love the 80s and 90s were our favorite decades, and we both love that style, and we wanted to capture that style. And my artist has gotten so much better, and he was great to begin with, but I mean he went to school. He's now he knows his characters inside and out, and it's just amazing how each issue his art just improves so much that I
hmm
released a cover for issue 8, and everyone was like blown away from it because it was just freaking phenomenal, and it was my first zombie cover, so I'm so excited to see that.
Yeah, I
But
mean, like with
yeah,
the art, that was the first thing that caught my attention when when we started talking. Um, I was really impressed with the artwork and everything, and then I read the first 2 issues that you sent over to me, and it's a really great story.
thank you.
Really, really cool. It definitely brings back some nostalgia for me when, I used to read comics, and when I was a kid, one of my favorite comics was the Predator comics, which is really cool. And, this artwork's a little bit different than that, but the gore and, the blood and everything, that just first thing that just stuck out to me.
Yeah, it's got all of that. It's hard to set a genre for it because it's horror, it's supernatural, it's adventure, it's survival. I mean, it's very survival-esque. They're trying to survive, and I should have gave you guys more because 3 is where the angels and demons come in, and their fathers. Seraphina's an angel descendant, and Draven
Mhm.
is a demon descendant, and their fathers are in the background pulling all the strings, and you learn about that in issue 3. You learn that well, if you see the little details, but the father is controlling Anubis to go after her, and their whole goal is to get this angelic weapon from her that she was created from and has the power of souls. So both their fathers want it so they could tip the scales, whether in heaven or hell's favor. The father wants it for another reason too, but he's using that excuse to go after it. So you get to see a lot of that in 3. You saw one of the angels in the first one that disappears. And it's kind of, so we have a lot of details in the background that people won't know for probably a long time. But if you notice, in any movie you've ever watched, they turn on the TV and there's exposition, like instantaneous exposition.
Yeah.
They tell you exactly what you want to know. So ours was kind of a joke, but if you look at the TV at the back of it, it's actually unplugged. So it's the angel in the window that's controlling it. And that's why in the next page, he's like, oh, you're already going to that place anyway. And she's like, how does he know where I'm going? But we also have a lot of Easter eggs that you guys might know of, because a lot of it's 80s and 90s, either horror games, horror, movies or whatever.
Right.
Or urban legends. Like in issue 1, there's a crocodile in the sewer that's on the bottom of the screen if you could see it. 2 is the typewriter from Resident Evil 2 that you save on all the time.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
3 is Nightmare on Elm Street. So there's all these Easter eggs from all the cool stuff. And each issue has one. So
Yeah, and I will say, like, it's not, of course, gratuitous or anything like that when it comes to the gore, at least as far as we've gotten. But
it doesn't
it's
get
very
worse.
good
I think 2 and 3
when
is
it's
like the
there.
worst page.
Yeah, like when it's there, it's very good though. Like, I mean, horror comics are very hit or miss with me, because it's either like, this is generally spooky and we're gonna file it under horror, and I wouldn't personally, but like other ones are just like really over the top, and it's like, okay, this is basically like a Tales from the Crypt comic, like, or
Yeah.
From Hell or something like that. And I will say that's like what was really satisfying about yours is like you're obviously trying to tell a story, but when the action pops off and the gore pops off, like it's there, it's not shied away from or anything like that, which is really cool.
And a lot of
Definitely.
cursing. Sorry.
Yeah, that's always nice.
I mean, you gotta have that. I mean, come on.
Yeah.
When you have a good comic, you gotta have that.
A very religious person say, you curse way too much. And I was like, all right, listen. It's like there's a demon and a chick that fights demons. They're going to, what are you going to say? Oh, darn.
Yeah.
But it's so funny because I'm going to post my mom's review when my hardcover comes out, because her exact words were, I finally read your story, and besides all the F words, it was pretty good. I was like, thanks, Mom. So, yeah, there's a bit of swearing. There's
Hey,
a
it still
warning.
adds to the word count.
Yeah.
Right.
There's a bit of warning there, in big bold letters to be like, it's mature.
Yeah.
So yeah, we have all that. But we've been really praised on the panel work. He does amazing panels. That is not me. That's him. I would love to take credit. We actually fought a lot. Not that he's hard to work with. Nobody not hire him because he's hard to work with. I'm hard to work with. But I gave him, I was used to giving like I've done it forever. For the issue before, I'd given, just a script, and they followed the panels. If there's 4 panels in my page, they do 4 panels. He was doing all these panels, and I wasn't understanding the genius of it, and it was getting too crowded, and it was getting complicated, and so we fought a lot about it. And then I realized that I had to compromise and back off on my panels so that he could turn my 3 to 4 panels into these gorgeous 9 panels or whatever he does.
Yeah.
And he did that phenomenally. And I had one reviewer, only one person, didn't really complain about it, but he's like, you could cut back on the panels. You don't need every action. You could put meanwhile or all this crap. And I was like, listen, he goes, it's not a movie. You don't need every action. I was like, our comic is a movie comic novel. It is all 3 joined into one. People love the panels. They love the dialogue.
And how you split characters is like genius.
Yeah.
Like, I've never seen stuff like that in comics. And like when I heard you explain it in a different interview, I was like, that's actually really awesome, because it does give everybody their own personality, like automatically.
Yeah.
Because I had someone say, wow, it's like 2 different people. And I was like, oh, funny story.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not that good of a writer. There are 2 different stories. Because even if as a writer, you think that you're making different personalities, and you hope that you're making different personalities. And some authors could be really good and they have different personalities, but you kind of always sense it's the same person. So in this one, you actually have 2, and you could tell their personalities are completely different, and they match us if you know us. Like mine talks all the time and rarely thinks. That would be me. And the other character thinks all the time and rarely talks, and we're both sarcastic. So you have that. And especially in issue 5, which I'll have to send you more so you can read them. In issue 5, he has this internal struggle. And we do have thought bubbles more than most people. And I know someone's like, oh, that's so retro. But the original thought bubbles in comics were more like exposition. They weren't like getting
Yeah.
into the character heads and all that. So our story is because I love the part of novels where you get into their heads, you know, like you get to figure out what they're thinking. Like I'd watch a movie and be like, well, I wonder what they were thinking at that time, and I'd go get the book.
Right.
Like, oh, what are they thinking? So now you have that, and especially issue 5, where our character is really struggling to, like, you know, he thinks he doesn't belong with her because he's an assassin and he's done horrible things, and she doesn't think that he belongs with him because she causes all this chaos. She's the worthy chaos. She causes everything. Her angelic blood has always caused things to be attracted to them, and you know, poor Draven has to deal with all of this crap, and so they have this internal struggle where they're just like, I should leave, or you know, we shouldn't be together, and of course they should, you know.
Yeah, and it's great because you have that automatic chemistry. Like, you didn't have to manufacture it, you didn't have to lead into it, it was there. So like the little arguments and stuff like that, they just it was like, oh, this was gonna happen anyway, you know, like, and it doesn't seem orchestrated.
Yeah, actually, it was kind of funny because when we first started writing, I flat out told my co-writer that in my mind they were lovers when they were, or they were, you know, together when they were teenagers, and then they got separated. I said, your character does not have to be in love with my character. It could be unrequited, but she is going to be in love with your character. And we agreed because we didn't want to, like you said, orchestrate it. We wanted to see the chemistry between the two of us because we had just met. We had just started writing. And it just, the chemistry was just instantaneous, and we were like, oh no, these characters have to be together. They just fit together. And it was so funny because my first letter originally said he was upset. I guess he's a romantic. He's like, shouldn't they kiss when they first show up together and be happy-go-lucky? I was like, first of all, no, he thinks it's a dream, and she thinks it's a trick. And then 4 seconds later, they're attacked by an entire town of ghosts. So when did you want them to have this session?
Yeah, and I love the pace too.
Yeah,
like,
yeah, it's very fast paced.
Well, I mean, like, I got really into heavy comics during quarantine, I would say, like, because, you know, I am completely comic book movie fatigued, ridiculous amounts. Depending on what it is, like, I might be really excited for it, but most of the time, just not at all. And my dad, like, that's our bonding thing. He'll go see any comic book movie because in his youth, he was like, I'll never get to see something like that. So now that, like, the technology is there, he's just like, I want to see that, going to see that. And I'm like, well, if I go with him, I get to hang out with my dad, who's getting older as days go on, and I get awesome food, and I get to watch him be happy. So it's like, you know, it's all win. And, you know, sometimes I'm surprised that they turn out better than I thought, but, like, sometimes we leave and he doesn't even ask me what I thought. He's like, he probably hated that one. Like, but there's been a couple where he actually hated, which blows my mind. I mean, I went over yesterday and he was watching the Avengers, and he's like, I can watch these nonstop. And me being like the source material nerd, I'm like, I can't watch these anymore, Dad. Like, which was funny because I saw you mentioning, you know, Supernatural not like really like representing the demons and everything properly, and I was like, yeah, she's totally gonna understand me because I'm the same way with, like, you know, Lovecraft demons or anything like that. Like, anytime like they want to like just pull a name out of a book and just like slap it on a character and have nothing to do with them, I'm like, oh my god, stop doing
Why
this,
do
please.
you do that? Like,
I don't know.
Like, not to pull this into anything, but like Velma, that took just characters and totally destroyed the characters. And I mean, as fans, we want to follow that source material. Like Witcher just destroyed, you know everything. You have this source, you have the fans. It's for a reason. Make your own shit up if you want. You don't have to, you know. So I love Supernatural, obviously. But there's two things. I mean, my angels are real angels. They don't zap into people because that was never a thing. And they do have true forms with the eyes and stuff. That's way scarier later. But the demons are demons. And we do have some lower demons. Like in 6, we do have the black eyes. The brother had the black eyes. And so they do have that. But when it comes to like higher demons, Supernatural just pull out a name. Like they had Remnal as which is her father in this story, has him as the Prince of Hell when he was like the right hand man of, you know, God, and he would, you know, take the souls from earth and take them to heaven, and that's kind of how the whole thing started, is with this angel. So when it was on Supernatural, I was like, what the hell is that? I was like, why?
You guys did it backwards.
Yeah, you have it backwards. And he actually was he's the one that created the Nephilims. He was the first one to sin against God and create the Nephilims. And I'm not even religious. This is just, I did tons and tons of research.
Yeah,
I made
you
sure
like
that
mythology and history, like
oh, I love it. And
yeah.
even the guardian angel, their horrible, failed guardian angel, which is the guy that disappears in
Mm.
one. That's Kemiel, who in scripture is he's the angel of true love and conflict resolution, which is why I chose him. And the demon, it's so funny because you haven't met them yet, but their parents aren't really technically in scriptures together, but mythology wise, the father of Draven is this chaos demon who feeds on souls, and he's immune to lightning. And Remnel is the one that would judge those souls and bring them, and then his power is lightning. So the two together was just perfect for the
Yeah.
story. So obviously we add personalities to these. You don't usually have angels bickering back and forth.
Yeah.
But and I'm sure Anubis. Anubis, it's so funny because I've had someone write to me like, Anubis isn't bad. I was like, I know he's not bad. He's being controlled. Just relax. He's okay. In issue 4, he's playing fetch with a hellhound. He is fine. You'll be fine. But yeah, as you can see in my background, that's my interior artist's Anubis. You could see him. I don't know how cameras work, but there you go.
Yeah.
And Anubis is actually going to side with them eventually. He's just trying to overpower. And you can see it in 4, which I have to send you, because if you ever seen Supernatural, I don't know if you've seen it, they steal the car at the bar. So the car from Supernatural is in 4 and 5.
Mm-hmm.
But you see this Anubis, this poor hellhound that got beat up by Draven's dad he did it to overpower the pack. So this poor, hellhound's like lost and he just follows the pack. He doesn't really have anything to do. So he just brings a stick to Anubis while Anubis is just standing there all pissed off. And he's like, oh, throws the stick, brings it back. And he's like, okay, he throws it again. So in the following issues, which wasn't in the novels, I kind of added it because I thought it was funny as hell. The hellhound just follows him. So you have this hellhound following Anubis with a stick in its mouth, just following through issues. And he starts to become, attached to it and be like, well, it's kind of my pet now. And they actually use that against him when the remote stops working. And so all this stuff happens, and the story is really well thought out. And granted, I'm biased, but it's very thought out, and it's action packed, and 2 gets even more action packed than book 2. And anyone that loves Resident Evil 2 and 3, that's pretty much book 3. I mean, they're trapped in a zombie infested city.
Yeah, I saw you mention that. And
yeah. So
it's funny because I guess we kind of have something in common in that sense, because I was kind of stuck in the Super Nintendo, like Sega Genesis era, and my parents were like, PlayStation's way too expensive, Nintendo 64 is way too expensive, and I lived in a big apartment complex, and I had went to like my best friend's house, one of my best friends, and he wasn't into RPGs or anything like anybody else was. I remember he was really into Twisted Metal, and I came over the day that Resident Evil 2 came out, and I've never seen a horror game in my life, and I was like, what is this? And he was like, here, try it out, and just like handed it to me, and it wasn't like movement I had issues with. I just started spraying everywhere. I just ran out of ammo in 5 seconds.
Dude,
I was
the
like,
first time
terrified, ruined, killed, and then he was just like, you're not very good at these, and then he started to like explain them to me. And he was like, here, I'll show you the first one. And then I remember the first one takes place in like, it's either June or July 1998. And it was June or July 1998. So when I saw that on the screen, I was like, oh my God, this really happened for like a second. And then he just started laughing so hard because I'd never experienced a horror game in my life. And I was like, this is so crazy. So that was probably my first big one too, is like, I liked 1, but like 2 was the one I first touched. And I was like, this is crazy. And I was always obsessed with it.
I remember being a kid and playing the first Resident Evil and getting so frustrated with it because I kept dying it was towards the beginning, with the dog and the dog house outside, and I kept fucking dying, and I was like, this game is so fucking frustrating.
That's me. I don't know if you heard the other video that I said, because I say it all the time, but I could not get Leon to walk out of the fire. Like in the very first scene.
Because the explosion.
Back into the fire, and I was like, stupid freaking controller. I was driving me crazy. And it was my brother that he was able to do it so easily, and it pissed me off even more. I had to kick him out, and I was like, get out of my room. And then I started, and then I was able to play it, but it was like driving me crazy. There was no instructions because I rented it. I literally bought the game system to play this, but rented the game. Like,
well, I mean, even worse, like, so I finally got a PlayStation like a year or two later, because my parents blessed me with a Nintendo 64. So it was like I didn't even care about PlayStation because I got GoldenEye for Christmas. So it was like
Yeah.
Ooh.
I forgot about my bad moments with Resident Evil almost entirely. But every time I would go to my friend's house, he was just either playing like the classic Super Nintendo RPGs or like Final Fantasy VII, and I was just like, oh my god, this is so
That's the
amazing.
other game I bought. Yep.
But when I got a PlayStation, I got Xenogears because nobody else had it, and I know he really wanted it, and I was like, okay, I'll try this, but then I can leverage it and be like, you can borrow Xenogears if I can borrow Final Fantasy VII. But eventually, I became a skater, and one of my friends was like, he always had all the new skate games, and he bought Silent Hill, and it was when like you would go to Funko Land, and they would be like, do you want the guide too? And he got the guide too. And he was like, hey man, I really don't like this game. And it was because he was scared of it, but he wouldn't admit it.
Aw,
And he was like, I don't really like
that's
this
adorable.
game. You can borrow it, and if you like it, you can just keep it. And this was like when it came out. So it was like $40 plus the guide. So I
Damn.
took it home. I was like, I got a free game. This is awesome. And it just like ruined my week. It was so terrifying. Like I was just like, I can't deal with this. I didn't even look at the guide. Like I just wandered through the back alleyways in the beginning of Silent Hill with the wheelchair and the guy that was crucified. And as soon as I
Oh
saw
my
that, I was like,
God.
I'm not even gonna play this anymore. I'm just not. This is like bad and it's gonna break my brain or something. Like I was just over it.
I loved it. I'm very susceptible to jump scares.
I
So
am now, like, because they don't use them as much anymore.
interrupted. Yeah, no, I'm probably worse. Like we have, I don't know if you know Tennessee at all, but we have Gatlinburg. And in
Mhm.
Gatlinburg it's not an escape thing per se, but you go through this wax museum kind of thing, and it's a zombie escaped from the lab, and you have to go through
Oh,
it, and
cool.
there's all these.
Oh,
So
nice.
their favorite, and it's on fire, which is like my worst fear. So that's even greater. But they have these air pumps, that go bzz, and I jump and scream every time. Like a zombie can be like surrounding me in real, and I would not scream as much as this thing. So every time something jumped through a window or anything like that, I think the loudest I have ever screamed was actually Resident Evil 4, because I had the nerds, my favorite, loved me, so they let me borrow the demo game for Resident Evil 4 before anyone else could even look at it. So I called them sick to work. This was great. So I'm playing it, and I could not get like into this. I finally got into that one like little building, and I finally realized you have to push the cabinet in front of the door, so
Mhm.
the chainsaw guy couldn't come through. So I thought I was safe. Like I was totally naive. And I'm at the window snipering, the villages, which sounds really bad if anyone hears that out of context. But anyway, I was
They deserved it.
snipering, yeah, these villages, and all of a sudden, I was chopped in half by the chainsaw because I did not realize that he can get in. I
Yeah.
screamed bloody murder. My boyfriend at the time ran down the stairs. He's like, "What happened?" I was like, "I got killed by a chainsaw." He's like, "What the fuck?" It's like, I'd screamed so loud in my entire life. But yeah, Silent Hill scared me, though. It was usually the static. You hear the static from
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
the radio, and of
I
course,
mean,
I
they're
don't know if
just polar
it's
opposites. Like
terrifying.
it's either like
Yeah,
jump scares with Resident Evil,
yeah,
which I was such a Resident Evil nerd that like, I never got into role playing or anything like, but and I've never been into tabletop either just because of the guides.
yeah. I
It's
didn't
just like
either.
there's so many rules. I don't like card games
Yeah.
because I'll forget rules and I'm like, oh, I'm the idiot who forgot that I can't do that. Sorry. Like just
Yeah,
holding everybody
everyone's
up.
so shocked that I haven't done them. I've never done a card game like Magic. I watched people
Yeah.
play it, but
Oh
Oh
I don't know
yeah,
the
and
man, I
the
rules.
love
it's like
Yeah,
the
Magic.
I have
art's
no idea the
incredible.
rules.
I used to
Yeah,
collect Magic, but
yep,
I could
I
never figure
never
it
played.
out.
I
Um,
love Magic the Gathering. I still love to play it, and I
You
just
were the
don't have
people we
anybody
watched
to
play.
do.
We
I just
didn't.
yeah.
don't have anybody to
Well,
play it with.
well, maybe you can
Aw,
show me and we can play because I love the art.
yeah, the
But
Yeah,
art's
I mean,
gorgeous. Yeah,
the game is yeah. What I like about the game is that there's so
right?
much reading involved. You have to
Yeah,
read the actual abilities
mhm.
of the cards and everything, and
yeah.
um, it's just such a fast paced game, and you're fucked when you see a certain combo come out, and you're like, God damn it! Because I used to play with a friend who used to play with nothing but blue. And blue is all like counter spells and like, oh,
Yeah,
you can't do anything this round. You can't do this and you can't do that. I'm like, dude, I
you're
hate
just
playing with you
sitting
now.
there. Just
They
sitting
have
there
tournaments
watching
on a
everything get
wall.
taken from you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I never played any of that, and I would go to the comic book store, and all the guys there would be playing, D&D, and I was fascinated by the
Yeah.
little miniatures and stuff. I just never bothered to learn it, and so everyone's
I
so
don't
shocked.
understand
They're
that.
like, "Yeah, I
Yeah,
know."
with D&D, I don't
You
understand
do though,
D&D
because if you played
whatsoever.
any
Yeah, if you
RPG,
played
you've already
the
been
same,
like
yeah,
locked into the rule set. It's just you don't realize
Dude,
it.
me personally, I'm an impatient person. So when it comes to like building your character at the very beginning, you got to spend like 3 hours to fucking do it. I'm like,
Right.
by the time
really.
my character's ready, I'm like, dude, I'm done. I'm ready to go home, man.
Yeah, it's like,
Yeah,
Sorry.
oh man, they look amazing. I guess I can go to bed because I got to work tomorrow. So
Yeah.
yeah. I used
Like
to role
I'm
play.
35 years old. I don't got time for this anymore.
yeah,
I used to role play online, and everyone is like, "Oh, that's like tabletop." I was like, "It's not even close."
no,
Like, everyone wants me to turn this into an RPG. I was like, I wouldn't even know where to begin. Like, I would have
right.
no idea.
It'd be
The
so
only
confusing.
characters, yeah, the only characters that I created monster wise was our Clotters, which is, you haven't gotten to that yet, but Clotters is our version of a vampire. And it came as pure logic, even though it's a completely supposedly a mythological creature, but in every vampire movie you ever watch, the vampire bleeds. And I always said their heart doesn't beat. How are they bleeding? Like, that's the problem I'm worried about.
Yeah,
So
that
I
was
said,
actually one of my questions for you is the
yeah,
questions about the clotters and what research you did to kind of come up with
yeah.
that.
So I kind of mixed my logic with and my made up logic with mythology. So for our Clotters, the subspecies of vampire, I say subspecies so that no one yells at me that they're not vampires. There are vampires in the world, but this is the subspecies of Clotters. And with them, what originally happened was one of the vampires had a heartbeat. Like every 6 hours, it would just, so they had this blood that would not fully clot. 6 hours is where rigor mortis sits in, so it's right before the 6 hours mark. And then this one with its thick blood was stronger, so it went out and made its own species of vampires. And what would happen was he needed to feed directly on humans because it needed so much more protein for this thick blood. So blood bags didn't work and animals didn't work. And they have their souls. So if you turn a regular person and they don't want to feed on a person, they would just wind up deteriorating like a zombie. That's what happens when you don't feed directly. The body starts to decompose. So he started to turn like serial killers and murderers and the most ruthless of people. So this is the most ruthless species of vampires there are, with their thick clotted blood that gives them more strength. And the added bonus is if they taste your blood or bite you, they can track you anywhere you go like a homing beacon. And if you kill one of them, the entire nest can now track you, and they can go and they will go after you no matter what for revenge. Now, mythology wise, I don't know where garlic came from. I did not find where that came from, but there's no garlic. And also, for those that don't know, mythology wise, they were not destroyed by the sun. They could go in the sun, they just didn't. They're shadow creatures, so they just lived in the shadows. So mine generally live in the shadows, but once revenge sets in, they will go into the sun. They will do whatever it takes to get to you. You don't have to invite them in. And originally, which I still call bullshit if I'm going to call anything, not being seen in a mirror is bullshit. Originally, they said, well, a mirror back in the day was created by silver, so it's too pure. Fuck you, a rock is in a mirror. A rock is not. So that's
Yeah.
bullshit. So that's
Yeah.
the only mythology wise that I was always like, come on,
And yeah, I never understood the garlic thing either. Like, what, vampires don't like Italian food? What's up?
yeah,
I think
really.
a lot of that is just
Science,
the
that's
human
the
mind
focus.
overcompensating.
Yeah, yeah.
Like, if they sell an albino, they were probably like, oh, the sun would probably mess that guy up. He might be a vampire too. Like,
Yeah.
just taking
That's
it and
generally
running
what
with
they
it.
used to think. Is that they used to think that the people that are they have the blood disease or anemic or anything, they actually needed to have blood, given to them or whatever. So that kind of started it. Cannibals kind of started it. The whole but I could never find anything on the garlic. I don't know where the garlic came. I know the
Probably-
movies did the sun.
I would have to guess just Victorian era madness.
Yeah.
Like everything
Yeah.
else that was cool during that time, just like,
Oh yeah,
we're just gonna
we're just gonna toss this out there. Garlic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
put
They
some
were trying
spikes
to
on some
give-
graves.
Yes. that was another thing. So you can't kill the clotters by staking them in the heart. And original mythology, that wasn't to kill them; it was to pin them to the coffin. So it didn't kill them; it just pinned them. So ours is you have to chop off their head. You can burn them, but it takes like 30 minutes or so. So it's the best thing is to do is just chop off their head. But
Damn
yeah,
right.
so we we started this whole mythology on this one creature, and issue 4 through 6 is like a mini hunt in this whole hellhound town that they're trapped in a town merging with hell. So they're trapped in this town, and then while they're trapped is this little thing going on where these clotters are after them, and of course one bites her and she kills it, and now they have to go track down every single one. So issue 6, that's the one that's live right now. They're on the hunt to kill them all. I mean, they could be 5, they could be 500, but they have to kill the entire nest or they will come after her, and there's really nothing you can do about it. Yeah, and as a side note, the easiest way to find us on Kickstarter is to search Worthy Chaos, and the reason why I throw that out there is, there's links and stuff, but if anyone searches Redemption, like 700 things pop up. So
yes,
Worthy Chaos.
I found that out the hard way.
Yes.
Worthy Chaos.
Yeah, I'm the only thing that pops up, and this is our 5th campaign, I believe. It's already funded. It's already past the first stretch goal. So if you bought like a $5 PDF, which we always give the black and white version and the color version, and I don't even know if anyone reads the black and white version, and it's so much harder for my artists, but there it is. There's black and white and color version. But you also get 20 other issue 1s from other creators. That's so for $5 you're going to get 21 stories.
Wow.
It's to really give, it's for me to be able to spread the, other indie creators. I'm very supportive of other indie creators. It gets the story out there. It gets people to read their stories. They're awesome stories. They're all in pretty much the same genre of horror, adventure, or anything like that. And for returning backers, there's 4 new ones, and for new people, there's 20 new ones. So I try to add at least 2 to 4 new ones each campaign, so that a returning backer always has something in there.
Well, even your merchandising is insane. Like,
yeah,
the queen of merch.
If this catches on, here's a resin bust. And it's just like, oh, that's so sick.
Yeah, which brings me, to seeing you on your Facebook presence. You're sharing so many other people's different works, which is really awesome, because it tells me that you are a supporter of the community. You seem to put in so much work into this. Like we talked about your work ethic and how much you've been promoting this. It's fantastic. It's really impressive. One thing I do want to share is the Kickstarter video, which I'll bring that up here.
just
Yeah,
shows
the
how much I
animation
want.
at the end is really cool too.
That just shows how much I want an animated series for this.
Yeah,
like
I mean,
everyone's like,
it would
oh,
be
you want
so
a
cool.
movie? They're like, you want a movie or show? I was like, no, animated series. I need an animated series because it's a long series. I'm picky how they look. I don't want people to quit or die or age too much or anything. So I would go for an animated, maybe like if it got popular enough ever, like an animated movie to like get it to the show, but it's like they do with anime, and manga and all that stuff.
Yeah,
But a series would be awesome, someday.
I
Yeah,
would
plus,
agree
I mean, a
because
series they can test run like 8 episodes, 10 episodes. They don't necessarily have
Yeah,
to do the whole thing.
yeah,
yeah,
Um,
yeah. I,
and
I that's what I would love. Absolutely.
yeah, and with Redemption, one thing I wanted to ask, um, is this like just purely fiction, or are there some things that are involved with your personal life into the story as well?
Um, no. It's all creative story. There's really nothing that is
Okay.
related except for my absolute love of supernatural and all that stuff. I do have an older brother and I sometimes did see him as a demon, but no. He didn't destroy my
Well,
parents or get possessed by a demon. So
yeah, it's just something that I just figured I'd ask because I know with a lot of comic creators, they try to splice in, personal life
yeah,
stories
like the
sometimes
crow,
too.
which
Yeah.
is big thing, yeah.
Um, yeah, I mean, and I'm really impressed by this, and I can't wait to read more issues.
Yeah, I'll send you
Um,
more.
yeah, for sure. I've already seen that you sent me a couple already. Um, and with this story, how far are you going to go? Like, what's going to be the end goal with it?
So for series one, at the end of this series, it does complete the 50 issues. However, we're obsessed. So there's going to be a warning that says, do not read the following epilogue if you want a happy ending or you want how this end is to end. And then it goes into series two. So we do have a series two planned. It's a different adventure. It's the same characters, but for a different reason. And it's mostly to they have to repair the weapon. So their quest is to like find these gems to repair, and they get tricked, which is there's a hint that I'm going to tell you that in this series they will never ever see their fathers because it wasn't in the novel. They're not supposed to be anywhere until series two. So series two does not work if they see the demon and the angel. So that's why they're always on the rooftops, and they're always like because they always did pull the strings. We just never wrote it. So I kind of added that in to show that they're not human, that there is things going on behind, the curtain say.
Mhm.
But yeah, so the series two, and we also have a spinoff that's already written. It's 45 issues written, and it's a what if. Like you guys saw that they got separated for 10 years, when they were teenagers. They got separated, thought each other was dead. She trained as a supernatural hunter, he trained as an assassin. However, in the spinoff, it became a what if, and it's for a completely stupid reason. We felt guilty that they lost those 10 years. That's how obsessed we are with this poor story. So we decided to give them a what if. How would it be? And we're first it was a joke, thinking, oh, it'll be so much easier. They're not separate. No, we did not consider the fact that as two teenagers, they ran away. They don't know that supernatural exists, but they're all after them. They don't have supernatural training. They don't have assassin training. You have these two pathetic teenagers that don't know how to fight thrown into this, running away from home on the run. And it became this incredibly intense story that was not planned at all. Now, it has all the same characters. And again, this wasn't planned. But because of that 10-year gap, allies in Redemption are now enemies in the spinoff and vice versa. Like there are some enemies that actually became their allies in the other one because there's this 10-year gap. It's amazing what 10 years will do, to your story.
yeah.
Yeah.
So it wasn't until it was over where I'm like, this guy is evil in this one. Like, well, how'd that happen? So I'm hoping to release that someday. My artist was slightly, first he was grumpy because I said, I wish you could do the spinoff. And he's like, why can't I do it? I was like, you have 50 issues. It's going to take you 7 years. But
Don't worry about that now.
but if we don't release it before then, he will release that. But we already started series 2 and we're 10 issues in, so in 7 years there's going to be a whole other series 2. Also, we have a prequel. It's only 10 issues into that, but my goal is to go all the way back to the feud between the fathers and then show how Seraphina was created from the weapon, why Draven was created to go after her originally, but fell in love with her. It was all these things, the prophecy that was created, and all that stuff. So I'm looking forward to doing that. So there's a lot of writing to happen. We did pass the 1 million word mark like last month. So we have over 1 million words written in this story. And we're still writing. And let me tell you something. I am being tortured because my co-writer's wrist is bandaged, so there's no writing going on, and it's driving me crazy. Like I have
My
like
ideas.
withdrawals. Yes. I had to stop because I'm the one that leads it, so I had to stop because I was getting too far ahead. And my co-writer still needs to write the ending because I wrote the ending to book 5 of the spinoff, which was 8.5 thousand words. So I might have went a little bit crazy. And now my co-writer is going to go back and write the reaction of Draven through that. But I got carried away and I started the series 2 already. So I'm already like 2 chapters into series 2, and I was like, I should probably
yeah. I mean, I'm the same way with music. I write music constantly.
Yeah.
And you know, I make so much music at home, and then like I'm just like, oh well, I have like 4 releases that I could do, but you know, I might trash one, I might not, I don't know.
It's a horrible addiction, and it's so funny because I'm dyslexic, and when I originally started, I was a one-liner, and I remember seeing Novelaires, which is like 1,000 words, and I remember seeing it and thinking, "There's no way I'm going to write that much for a reply. That's never going to happen." You know, it's just I don't know how you guys do it. There's too much. And I stuck to one-liners and now I can't even imagine what the hell I wrote for one-liners. Like, what the hell was I doing? But one-liners for 2 years, and then I did multi-para or para for 2 years, and then I was like, all right, let me try multi-para. And then somebody's like, you could do novelaire, and I was like, no way, that's way too much. And I did it, and I got obsessed. But even still, my replies were like 1,000 words. My co-writer came around. I sent the starter for it. It was 4,000 words. And now our replies are always between 2 and 8,000 words. So yeah, we get a little carried away. So yeah, but you know, and we usually have like 2 or 3 going at the same time because we'll get an idea and we're like, oh, we got to do this right now. When we originally wrote this, it wasn't even in order. Like it was like all over the place, and I put it in this really cool order, and we still skip. So right now we have the ending of book 5 of the spinoff, and I have chapter 1 of the spinoff 2 going. So yeah, we're always writing, mostly so we both write, but now I think my co-writer has to catch up on 3, the 8.5 thousand words in that one, the other chapter, and another chapter in series 2 for Redemption. So I'm just sitting here like a loser being like, now what? So yeah, here I am.
Well, no, I mean it's a lot of work, and you know, it's really cool that you know you're so invested into it, and you're building this world, you know, of these 2 characters, and it's really awesome, and I'm really excited to check it out, and you know, be more into this world, I guess.
Well, thank you. I'll send you them, and you can tell me what you think of the rest. So
Awesome.
For sure.
Wait till you get to 2 though, because you've got zombies, giant salamanders it's our version of the lickers from Resident Evil. So we got giant salamanders in 2, and ghosts and everything. You guys probably don't know the game Seventh Guest, right? Even though you're kind of my age.
Oh
but,
yeah.
well, it's kind of like Seventh Guest where
Yeah, I mean, my wife actually she downloaded that. It was like on Xbox, I think, and she downloaded that game, and she was just like, "Oh my god, I used to play this game all the time."
Yeah, I used to emulate
I can't remember any of it. I can't remember.
I remember like the intro.
Yeah,
very vividly.
Intro. I remember the creepy toys that were haunted, the creepy toys, and I remember the game that I could never beat. It was something about some picture with coffins or something. I can't remember, but it was something you had to move, and it took like years to figure it out. Anyway, it's kind of like that where they're trapped in an asylum, and something. It wasn't because of that, but after I wrote it, I was like, oh, it kind of reminds me of that. But you have to figure out like why the ghosts are trapped in there, what happened in the past, and how do they get out of this completely haunted, you know, trapped asylum that. And the asylum pretty much is alive. Like, you know, like they change the floors on them, or they just mess with them. She falls through a floor. She's trying to get out of this room that she's trapped in. And she goes through this window and goes to the floor, and then she crashes the floor, but she's back in the room. She's like, how did I fall through a floor and I'm back in my own room? So all these cool things happen in this asylum. So it doesn't slow down. The story gets more intense.
Which is good.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's
someone
great.
made fun of me, and they said, "Oh, is this going to be like Game of Thrones where the ending is horrible?" And I was like, "No, the ending's already written. It's done. You've got 50 issues you're going to enjoy because it's not. They even travel to hell in like 4 and 5.
Yeah, it's the
So
production that's got to catch up. You're not like
yeah,
Martin
yeah.
just sitting
I want
around
to.
twiddling out a
I mean,
sentence a
no,
day.
I gotta clone my artist is what I gotta do, and he's fast. He's super fast, but
Yeah.
I need more. So like, yeah. Anyway. But yeah, but I really appreciate you guys having me on and letting me
Of
ramble
course, yeah,
and
it's
stuff.
been awesome
Oh
insight.
man, yeah, it's been awesome talking to you and learning about this. And you know, um, I mean, if everything goes even more in depth, we would love to have you back and
Yeah, yeah.
discuss
I'd like to
more.
come back for in January for book 2 because I'm gonna
Yeah,
have some cool thing, and I'll have the hardcover out, and hopefully the hardcover works out because I'm buying from a new distributor, and I've never bought from them before, and I have to buy 500 of them, you know. So I'm terrified of that. But I'm only charging the same price as soft cover because I'm not making a soft cover. So it's gonna be like $40 for 230 pages, and
See, I think you're
it'll
making
be
all
good
the right
to go.
moves because I hate soft covers so much. I'm like, this is gonna fall
Yeah.
apart in 3 years, or
Oh yeah.
somebody's gonna
Oh
grab
yeah.
it off my shelf and be like, "Oops, I dropped it," and I'm like, "No."
No. And the nice thing here, the hardcover has the DC artist Ken Hunt.
Yeah, I saw
He
the
made a new,
Anubis.
yeah, but this is a new one. He made us a new
Right.
cover. It's like a movie poster, and CC Dela Cruz from Lady Death Universe colored it also. And I haven't seen it
very
yet. She
cool.
drives me crazy. I love her to death. But she's always so busy, so I'm like, I can't bother her. I can't bother her. I was like, when is it gonna be done? So it's driving me crazy. I want to see it so bad. Her work is absolutely phenomenal, and I cannot wait to see this colored and yeah. So
Yeah, I definitely
there it
agree
is.
with her being amazing. She, I remember when I finally discovered those comics, I was like, "Good Lord, what is this?"
Man, their comics bring in like 400,000 plus.
Yeah, it's
So
crazy.
I
Hmm.
can't say, hurry the hell up because it's me that's blessed with her. And the only reason why she's probably even doing it for me is because she loves Ken Hunt's work. Ken Hunt is the one that's like, "Oh, go find her." And I was like, "Does she have time for me?" Like, you know. So, and this new one is so many details. Like if you think that Anubis has details, this has Anubis and then all the characters, the Hellhounds and my two main characters, the angels, the demon, and he even said, he goes, "My wrist is going to fall off." I was like, "I just want to point out at this particular time that you chose this design when you tell me your wrist is falling off,
Yeah.
because I did not plan this." So he did it to himself. I did not do it.
Right.
And Ken Hunt is actually working on his own miniseries. And we're hopefully going to be able to cross promote because his work he's got a supernatural detective story coming out. And I read the script and it's phenomenal. So,
Sweet, sweet.
and I still think that's
Nice.
perfect for my character. We'll just cross promote, do a cross poster of her, like, taking over your kills or something, something
Yeah,
that she would
that's the
do.
great thing about comics is you guys can just constantly just swap artists, swap
I love this
colorists, all that
community.
stuff.
Yeah, the community is amazing. I mean, I was terrified of being a horror girl and making comics but all there's other girls. I've met one other girl,
Mhm.
Lori. She's very supportive, and she has a zombie cowboy, which is actually Path of the Pale Rider.
Yep, I
It's
looked
on
that up
pre-launch.
last night. It
Yeah,
looks great.
go add to. Oh, it's phenomenal. But yeah, so it's me and her and all these men. We're surrounded by constant men. And you would think that some of them would be, not wanting to deal with these stupid girls that just join their group, but they're all phenomenal. They're all supportive. They all have amazing comics, and we all cross promote. And I think I've
I
only
think,
had two guys like downplay us, like be like, "Oh,
yeah, I think with
mansplaining."
nerd stuff, it's just like if the content is there and it's good, we don't care.
Yeah, yeah.
Like,
Nerds have always been welcoming.
yeah, it's
I've
not like that. It's just like, if you're putting out a great product and you're not just like belittling the audience, like nobody's gonna
yeah, yeah,
care.
yeah. I have to say that yeah, it's not nerd men and girls. It's just nerds.
Yeah.
And it's awesome, and I
Exactly.
love it. And it's so funny because my in-laws are like, "Don't you have a lot of competition?" I was like, "They're all the people that back me are other creators,
Yeah.
So it's
Yeah, which
It's
is
more
really
collaborative
cool.
than anything.
yeah,
Hmm.
yeah. And October is going to be huge. There's all of us are going to have a comic out in October, so it's going to be incredibly insane. So, yeah, we'll have I'll have issue 7 out, which explains most of what's happening in book one, and then it just creates more questions for the rest. But it answers a lot. So and again, the art looks even better. So that is done. We're already done. I'm gonna send it to the printers, but it doesn't get released till Halloween. So sorry.
Well, we'll
I might
definitely
share
keep
with
an
you.
eye on
We'll
it for
see.
sure.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
It'll be interesting
Well,
to see
Corissa,
just how you progress and how the art progresses and everything.
Yeah.
yeah, for sure.
Definitely.
Well, Carissa, I do want to thank you so much for joining us today. You know, it's something that's different for us on this show. We usually do movies, and
I
you know, we're
almost didn't
trying to
ask you
branch out
because
and
I
do
saw that. I
different.
saw you do movie. And I was like, it doesn't hurt to ask. I get
No,
ignored
I
all the
mean,
time.
no, I mean,
We've always talked
we've been
about doing other
talking.
horror stuff.
Yeah, we've been talking about doing other forms of media, and comics was definitely one of them that we talked about, and it was so cool for you to reach out, and we would definitely love to have you back.
Yeah, I would absolutely love to come back. We'll make a plan for January and go from there.
For sure.
Yeah, for sure.
Great.
All
All
right.
right.
Well,
Thanks,
this
guys.
will kind of wrap up our episode for Darkest Fears
Yep.
podcast on
I hope
redemption,
you
and
continue to have all the awesome luck you've been having, and we'll see you then.
Thank you.
for
Perfect.
sure.
Thank you, guys.
If anybody likes our video or likes this video, definitely check out Worthy Chaos Comics. It's an awesome graphic novel that's been going on with redemption. And if you liked our video with Darkest Fears podcast or any of our previous videos, definitely like and subscribe. Hit that bell notification so that way you don't miss any more of our videos. And we'll see you next time.